Hey guys, Sean here, and welcome to the F1 Word and Sunday Live, our testing review. What a couple of weeks it's been. A proper intriguing couple of weeks, I think. Don't know what you're thinking, chat. Everyone looks like they're well ready for this one. Hello to everyone in chat, of course. I'll be joined by a couple of people in just a moment. We'll get all the housekeeping out of the way. All links to social media in the description down below. What else have I got to tell you? Yes, donations. Sorry, I've got a little list here because I've got so much to talk about today and I'm getting a little bit lost already. But you can donate through Streamlabs and through Super Chat. And of course, you can follow the channel with Patreon and donate there. So do go check out that page. Even if you're not going to donate, give it a read because there's a bit of information over there for you about where the channel's going. So really, there's only one place to start. And that is by bringing in today's guests. And yes, we're going with plural. We're back to 3 because we need opinions. That is the whole point of this channel, is opinions. We will start off by saying good evening to Jonty as ever. Good evening, Jonty.
Good evening, Sean and everyone. Are we all good?
I'm pretty good. Chat looks good as well, mate. So I've got a few viewers tonight that want to talk about some testing. It has been this week's been really good. First week was a bit rubbish, but it's not been too bad. Just good to have the cars on track, and I think it's raised a lot more questions than answers, though, for me.
Yeah, but that's always fun for the debate on a Sunday. We've seen a lot of teams up and down all over the place.
I'm looking forward to it. This season's going to be great. And returning to our Sunday Live, good evening, Chaz. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. And also, hello to everyone watching as well.
There you go. That's straight to the point. What more can you say? What more can you say? Seriously. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, because this is going to be... We're probably going all over the place because, well... If you're new to the channel, then you'll learn. But if you've been here for a while, you know that I tend to end up all over the place at some point. We will start by talking about week one, mainly because there's not really too much point in talking about week one, really. It was a washout. We didn't really get anything representative. I mean, what do you think, Jonty? Can we take anything from the first week, or was that just about cars checking reliability and getting some mileage down?
Yeah, it really was. The weather caused so much issues with the running times. All anyone could really do was make sure things turned on and off and ran for a little bit. They really couldn't test much in the way of aero.
Yeah, I think that was... the snow was one thing, the rain was another, but obviously the cold temperatures, they're never going to be running at 3 degrees in Formula 1. I'd be stunned if we turned up to Bahrain and we had snow. It's never going to happen. So can we take much from week one, Chaz, do you think?
No, not really. I mean, the only real noteworthy thing was McLaren's issues, which is the only thing I think you could say it went into the second week as well. Because if all the other teams, what they did in the first week, they didn't repeat in the second week. Like, for example, Haas were dead slow in the first week, and then in the second week turned it on because I think the higher temperatures helped them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll come on to sort of each team as we go through, but Haas, one of the surprise packages this winter, that's for sure. But I asked Jonty, I'll come to you with this one, Chaz, because I've already sort of had Jonty's opinion on a stream for this. Do we need to move pre-season testing, or was this just a one-off?
It was just a one-off because I've heard people saying let's move it to Bahrain, but logistically and for a lot of the small teams, it's just not possible. And Barcelona is probably the best option possible for the teams. It's the best option.
Yeah, I mean, as I said a couple of weeks ago, that was the first time it snowed at the circuit for a decade. So it's not like it happens every other season. So I could understand if it was happening every season and they were losing loads of mileage. It does rain, obviously, but it rains everywhere, to be honest, apart from, again, Bahrain. But I think we need to avoid a knee-jerk reaction. Maybe go back to Barcelona next year, play it by ear, or even do what they did a couple of years ago and won at Barcelona and then won a couple of weeks before Melbourne on the way to Australia in Bahrain. And that way, best of both worlds, I guess, Jonty, in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a little bit bad on the logistics side and obviously the cost, which is always an issue and everyone's talking about all the time, to have an extra test. But Barcelona really is the track that still reveals a bad car.
Yeah, it was. We said, didn't we, the other week? It was Dave Richards who said it will always expose a bad chassis and aero. It's the right mix for a track. So I think, need to just avoid worrying too much about that. If it snows again next year and they lose a load of mileage, then fair enough. But I think see how it goes. I mean, Bahrain wouldn't be a bad place. It's got quite a good mix of corners, but I don't think it's that representative either, really. I mean, when are they going to rock up at Silverstone's temperatures like that, for example? It's not going to happen. So I don't think we can take an awful lot from week one, and I don't think moving testing is the way to go. We're going to go to week two because I think that's when it got really interesting, and it has raised. I know you say, John, usually in testing we get a mix of questions that we can't seem to answer, but this year there just seems to be more unanswered questions, and it's thrown up. I don't know. It just feels a bit. I don't think anybody really knows the running order this year. Last year we had a rough idea, but this year, aside from probably the back 2 or 3, I don't think we really know, do we?
No, and one of the teams which has really confused me a lot is Mercedes. I mean, they've done tons and tons of laps, as they always will, because they've already got the reliability nailed. But at no point did they really go out and attack. They ended up quite low down on the fastest times, which is really, really bizarre. You'd think just for once, even with sandbagging, you'd think they would just throw one out there just to put the wind up the other teams, but it just didn't happen. And I was quite concerned by that.
Yeah, they didn't take the hypersofts either, did they? They admitted after the final day they did no low fuel running at all, and they didn't take the hypersoft tyres. Which, when you look at what every other team bar one have done, that's actually quite surprising. And I think that, for me, I don't know about you, Chaz, but that to me reeks of confidence. They're very confident going into this season.
Yeah, I think if they weren't as confident, they definitely would have gone for a low fuel run like Ferrari did on the last 2 days. I think Mercedes have an advantage, and I think they know.
Actually, some people they reckon it's about a second. From the data I've looked at, I don't see a second, but I think they are going to be the team to beat this year. I think they are going to hit the ground running, but the problem is we're going to get so much development through the season that the order when we get to Australia won't necessarily be the order when we end up in Abu Dhabi. So it is going to be a really good season, but I've been saying all winter, I'm having to backtrack now, I've been saying all winter that I think Sebastian Vettel will win the Drivers' Championship. I think it's Lewis Hamilton's to lose, based on what we know so far. Obviously, Ferrari may not have shown their hand, Red Bull may not have shown their complete hand yet, but at the moment, it definitely looks like Mercedes are the team to beat, and Lewis, as much as I like Bottas, I think he'd easily put him in his place, so I think it's his to lose at the minute.
Yeah, it definitely is, right now.
Certainly seems that way to me.
It's a weird. What about Ferrari then? Because I reckon they're going to be second. A lot of people saying Red Bull have pipped them to second place at the moment, and I don't know why, but I don't think Ferrari again have completely shown what they can do in that car. Yeah, they've done some hypersoft running, but I just don't feel like that's everything they've got just yet.
Well, it was certainly a fair bit quicker than other people. It would be nice to think that they've got extra in there, and you would certainly think that they've kept some back. But like you said, Mercedes do seem confident, so who knows? That's one of the bigger unanswered questions, I think.
It's a thirsty car as well, that Ferrari, isn't it? Again, it's same as 2014. They're really struggling with their fuel consumption, so that could be very costly when it comes to those high fuel dependent races. A real worry, I think.
Yeah, where's going to be the first for that, though, do you reckon, traditionally? Canada, maybe?
Yeah, possibly Canada.
Bahrain.
Yeah, Bahrain, long straights, yeah.
The high temps.
It's going to be... I'm not... I still think they're second. A lot of people put in Red Bull there. I still think Ferrari are... There's not a lot between them, don't get me wrong. Red Bull and Ferrari, we're talking hundredths, but I think Ferrari have just got a little bit more to show. Red Bull look good though, Chaz, this year. They've properly hit the ground running.
Yeah, they definitely have. If you compare it to this time last year, they're definitely a lot closer, especially to Mercedes, even if Mercedes do have a clear advantage. They're a lot closer, and I don't think they'll start the season like bang on it, challenging for race victories if they get that close, but I definitely think they'll be competing seriously with Ferrari.
they've got a shot this year. I think Mercedes will have the edge, but the chassis right. If Renault give them the right power, Jonty, they're going to be in the mix, aren't they? Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And we may not have seen it as much from Red Bull themselves, but we've certainly seen a big jump from the works team with the Renault. So that could spell good news for Red Bull.
What's your? We'll get the top three out of the way because they're going to be the ones that get spoken about all season, and we'll get onto the midfield and the back of the grid in a minute. But what's your top three running order then, Jonty? Put you right on the spot there.
Constructors wise, I'm going to say Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull.
Ferrari.
Overall.
Overall, yeah. What are your thoughts, Chaz?
I think it's Mercedes first, and then I'm going to go Ferrari just ahead of Red Bull. Just to add on Ferrari, if no one's seen it, I think there's a clip of a 360-degree onboard cam of Vettel's quickest lap. Through the corners, that car is good, so it's definitely hiding something.
Yeah, there's something there. Another car that, not another car, somebody else actually said that the Ferrari looked pretty bad through the corners. I think it was on the Sky Sports report, and even Ted Kravitz seemed very much like, were they really? I think there's a lot of sandbagging going on at Ferrari. We saw it last year, of course, and I think, like I say, we get to Australia. I think Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, but I don't necessarily think that's the way it's going to be in Abu Dhabi. I think there's a lot of development to come. Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo toe to toe. They probably give each other a couple of tenths of a second anyway, just racing each other. So I think the title will be decided probably more by Red Bull taking points off a team rather than Red Bull winning the championship, if that makes sense. I think that's probably where it's going to get decided. But towards the back of the grid, it's very tight. On my little list here, I've still got Sauber as plumb last, but not cut away from the midfield. They're not really far adrift, are they, Jonty? It's just so close.
Yeah, it's really close with all the teams down at the back. And it shows, I think what's shown more is certain teams making big leaps forward and other teams kind of staying where they were, possibly even stepping back a little bit. With Sauber have certainly made advances. That's clear to see.
I find them quite, weird's the wrong word, but they're still the slowest. Yet I'd say they're one of the happier teams on the grid. It's quite strange to see that, if that makes sense. They're sort of, we're still the slowest, but we've made great strides. This all looks great. We've got a lot more staff on board. We're sorting the factory out. They're so optimistic, and it's sort of the start of a fresh chapter, I guess you could say, with Sauber. And I'm really confident from this year. They're not going to be challenging for fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, or anything like that. But I think they could end up off the bottom, Chaz. They look all right. The car's a handful, but they look all right.
Yeah, I think they've made an improvement, but I still do see them struggling quite a bit during the first half of the season. I think what you'll see is from about Spa, Monza on, then you'll really start to see the progress of having Alfa Romeo on board and the up-to-date Ferrari engine as well.
Yeah, that's when the financial backing from then is going to start paying off. Obviously, didn't get a lot of time through the winter with that money, I suppose. So it does look a handful, though. They've been in the gravel a lot. I know part of that is because it's Marcus Ericsson. I'm joking, of course, but they looks a handful. But I think once that money pays off, like you say, Chaz, they'll be climbing that table a little bit. Not crazy like, but I'm confident for them. One team. Are you ready for this, Jonty? Imagine what we're going to get after this one. One team that are simply absolutely nowhere are Williams. What is going on there, Jonty? Because it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, it's hard to narrow down exactly what the problem is, but you can only say it's not good enough from such a big team.
There is obviously the argument that they're running the slower tyre. However, if you then take into account that and look at all of it and adjust all the times based on the delta between each of the soft tyres, even if they were to run the hypersofts, they'd still only be 8th quickest. So people could throw the tyre argument at it all they like. the fact of the matter is, the best they're going to be on that at the moment is 8th. And that's when you consider Claire Williams said first day of testing, I think, that they were targeting 5th or higher. There's no chance that's going to happen, is there, Chaz? There's just no way.
No, that car looks a real handful. And I'm a bit surprised, honestly, because I also believed that with Paddy Lowe having a full winter to design this car, that he would actually improve it. And to me, I don't see any improvement. They've just fallen back again.
Yeah, I was optimistic for them. Like you say, Paddy Lowe's in. They've got the Mercedes engine, obviously. You're not going to get any better than that in terms of the engine. But I thought there'd be more from them. Disappointed, frustrated, and concerned. I said it in the video on Friday. I am concerned, not just because of this season, but long term for Williams. Martini leaving them at the end of the year, that's because they've reached their objectives or whatever, which I don't think is the full story. I think it's got to do with drivers partly. You've got a test driver who, through the majority of the testing, was quicker than both the race drivers. Yeah, Sergei Sirotkin turned up with actually a pretty good lap on the soft tyre compared to everybody else, a 1:19.1, I think it was, on the softs, which actually isn't a bad lap time, but again, tyre adjusted. They're just nowhere, and I'm just concerned for them going forward. The money's not going to be there. Lance Stroll, I believe, for each season, doesn't the money they get from Mr. Stroll go down a little bit? I think it sort of goes down each season. No Martini sponsorship. They've lost 2 or 3 sponsors on that car already. That's it's not so much about this season. It's the long-term concern for Williams. And am I over-egging it a little bit, John T? Is this just another season where Williams are going to fall a bit further back, and then in 2 seasons' time they'll make the leap back up to top 3 or 4? Or is the real concern there?
No, I think you're right in having real concern there. It looks almost drifting the way of Jordan. Jordan were challenging the 3rd and 4th place teams quite a lot, and then they just slowly started to drift down and then disappeared. I think Williams is going the same way now.
It's sad. I'll fess up right now. I am a bit of a Williams fan. That they're British. They're steeped in history. They're the underdog as well. So I always want to see them do well. But it's just frustrating to see them in that position. We'll not bash them too much though, because there are plenty of I'm sure they're going to get a lot through the season. So we'll not go too hard on them. One team I'm also not going to say too much on today is Force India, because that's not their 2018 car, is it, Chaz? That is. We don't know what they've got yet.
No, it's not their 2018 car. It's similar to, you remember 2015, where they just brought an updated version of the 2014 car? It's basically that. It's just an updated 2017 car. The 2018 car, once we get to Melbourne, then we'll start to see what Force India really has.
They're one of 2 teams that are bringing big updates, aren't they? There's Force India and McLaren bringing the big updates to Australia. I think Renault have got a couple to come, which we'll come on to Renault in a bit. If they've got more to come, then it's looking good for them. But I think last year as well, Force India had a pretty torrid test and then brought updates to Australia and ended up 4th again. So, I'm not concerned by them. The lap times aren't that far away, even tyre adjusted. Although they did their fastest on the Hypersoft, they don't need adjusting. But on long runs, they look all right. I think we'll wait and see what they do in Australia. They're going to be in that fight for 4th and 5th and 6th, as I said. But one team we touched on at the start were Haas. A bit of a surprise this winter. Sky Sports, I don't know what you think, Chaz, because I kind of sat and watched the TV and went, what are you on about? They reckon they're the 5th fastest car. Is that a little bit generous?
No, I think that as well. I think they're right there with McLaren, maybe slightly behind Renault, but I do think they are just about there, because the lap times they were doing on, I think it was the 2nd and 3rd day, or the 3rd and 4th day, were absolutely brilliant. And I think they were running super softs or ultra softs against Ferrari's hyper softs, and they weren't that far off. So I do think it's genuine.
Actually, saying that with Haas, Gunter Steiner said they basically ran no fuel to pump those times in for K-Mag and Grosjean. That doesn't matter. That just shows there is raw pace in the car. But the tyre adjusted times, putting them on the hypersofts, they actually end up 4th fastest and within 0.7 of a second of Ferrari. What the hell? Where's that come from? It's crazy. I would love to see Haas, another privateer team, right up there battling with the top 5. I don't know, John T. I think they might go into the season with 5th, 6th fastest car, but I think over the course of the year, as the others develop, they might end up a little bit further down. But if they get the points on the board early, and with the inexperience at Toro Rosso and Williams, that could see them in good stead for the rest of the year.
Oh, yeah, it really could. And I don't think they're going to drop away quite as much as you would usually expect. Because I've forgotten the guy's name, but the designer they've got on now, who's vastly more experienced, and that development through the season will keep progressing as opposed to sort of dying away towards the end of the year when the team's experience isn't as good as the other teams.
Would you say 5th fastest at the minute going into the season, or is that... I think some of it, I guess, depends on what Force India and McLaren turn up with in Australia, I suppose, doesn't it? But
yeah, with Force India, McLaren, Renault, even Toro Rosso, they're all so tight there. I think we've sort of got 4 teams at the front and then an even next 4 teams and no idea of who's going to be actually 5th.
That midfield is... it's insane. It's insanely tight. We're talking throughout the winter. Effectively, let's not lie, effectively slagging Toro Rosso off, saying they're screwed, they've got a Honda engine. They turn up and surprise us all. Haas, oh well, they'll end up as the slowest then. They turn up and surprise us all. Williams fall away. Sauber kind of stay where they are, but pick up a bit of pace and get a bit closer to the midfield. And all of a sudden we're going, oh, I really don't know. What about McLaren? We're going to have to talk about McLaren. We've talked about them a lot this last 2 weeks. I still think they're going to be in the mix for that 4th spot. I'm not as confident as I was over the winter with all the problems they've had. But, you know, Jonty, this is testing. You have to cut them a little bit of slack. At least it's happening now and not Australia, I guess. But I don't know.
No, I don't think they deserve any slack. They should know better by now. There's been so many excuses for so long. They really should have turned it around.
Interesting stat, actually. I sent it to you yesterday, Jonty, and I've had another look through it today, and it's the most pointless graphic I think I've ever sent you, and I do apologise. And that is McLaren 3.5 seconds quicker than they were in 2017. And there are teams on there, for example, Renault 1.7 seconds quicker, Haas 2.1 seconds quicker, and I was like, wow, that looks really good. Sauber 2.5 seconds quicker, that's impressive. Then we have to remember the tyres are all a grade softer and the track's been resurfaced. So probably 2 seconds of that is down to that and nothing to do with the car performance. So I apologise for sending that useless stat, Jonty. But on the face of it, even with all that adjusted, they have found pace. Is that just down to the fact they've got the Renault engine, or does the car look good? I think it looks underdeveloped at the moment.
You've got to finish. It doesn't matter how quick the car is, you need to get to the end, and they still haven't sorted those reliability issues. Clearly.
It's a weird one. I mean, people... I put a little dig up on Twitter at some people, you know, oh, it was told you it wasn't Honda's fault and all that, and it's, okay, fair enough. Are they in trouble this season, Chaz?
I think once we get to the European season, I think they'll be fine. But for the first 4 races, I don't think they'll be that special. I think they'll be like 5th or 6th fastest. One thing I took from the test wasn't the problems they had; it was the pace. I don't actually think right now they're that quick compared to their rivals. Because if you look at the lap times they did, they always ran on a lot softer tyres compared to others, and they didn't actually show that great of speed compared to the slower tyres others was running.
Yeah, absolutely. They weren't, you know, people blame the reliability and say, oh, you know, it's only teething problems, but they're not that quick compared to those around them. But you said there about the first 4 races, that could prove quite costly towards the end of the season if Renault, Haas, Force India remain consistent. If they've missed out on a good haul of points for 4 races, it could cost them quite heavily at the end of the year.
Yeah, definitely could, especially against Renault, who to me look like they have a definite advantage right now, and Renault could build that advantage over those first 4 or 5 races.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll come on to Renault in a sec because they're another team that have just really surprised me this winter. Anything you want to add on McLaren, Jonty, that we've not really already said in previous streams?
No, No, just people mentioning in the chat already that they seem to have even messed up pit stops. I bet they wish they did have some sandbags for the car to land on.
Yeah. Yeah, some pretty... I don't know. When it's not going your way, it's not going your way. But, we've blamed luck for Alonso and McLaren the last few years. There's got to come a point where we can't say it's down to luck anymore. I'm not going to say it was all Honda's fault. I'm not going to say it was all McLaren's fault. I think we were led to believe Honda were pretty much at fault for everything. But looking at, back to the point with the pit stop issues, the bodywork issues, the packaging inside and outside that car, they're going to have to hold their hands up and take some responsibility for it. But I don't know. It's a weird one. Let's hop on to Renault, their engine supplier then. Really good winter for them, Jonty. Really impressed until the last day, really. They didn't have any issues whatsoever.
Yeah, they've run a very smooth program and kept themselves ticking along nicely, clocking up the laps and not being too far away from the pace. Quite an impressive show from them. It really is.
Yeah, on all the tyre adjusted times, 9/10 off the Ferrari. I mean, if somebody had offered Renault the chance to be that close to Ferrari at any point last season, they'd have snatched their hand off. I mean, that's quite a game for them, Chaz. I'm actually really surprised. I thought they would struggle to make. I thought that was between McLaren, Force India for that sort of 4th, 5th spot. I never thought Renault were going to be in that fight. I go back to quite a few streams ago, actually, to be honest, mate. I think you actually said that you expected Renault to be top 4 and sort of end up with a bit of a manufacturer's championship, if you like.
No, I thought Renault would really start putting on the pressure in the last half of the season because obviously they could outdevelop teams like Force India. But for this pre-season, I've been really surprised by Renault, and they've actually as well been sandbagging a lot more than some of the other midfield teams like Haas or McLaren, because I think on a couple of the days they did their quickest laps on medium tyres. So they've also got a lot more to show as well, I think.
Yeah, they're another team that have got quite a few, or not quite a few, but a good few updates coming to Australia. They've also got probably one of the best driver lineups on the grid, and looking at their times, there's hundredths of a second between them consistently. That people talk about Ricciardo and Verstappen and the fight between the Force India boys. That's going to be so tasty between Hülkenberg and Sainz, isn't it, Chaz? It really is.
Yeah, it is. And I think for Renault, that is fantastic because if you remember last year, the reason I think Renault didn't finish, say, 5th in the Constructors is because they had Hülkenberg, who was pushing the car, and then Palmer, who was nowhere near. Now they have two drivers pushing each other to the max, and that will just benefit the car in terms of performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I said earlier about Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen. If you've got two teammates pushing each other, that's worth time as well. So both with points to prove, of course. But I think you said the other day, actually, in voice chat, I think it was, Jonty, you're hoping that those two work together rather than sort of go against each other.
Yeah, I think it would be a nice change to see the drivers working as a team more than just sort of a little competition between them as they try to get further up the field. Renault have got a real chance this year if they can persuade the drivers to work together, drag each other down the straights with DRS to really take the fight to the teams at the front. It could mix things up even more and make for some proper entertainment.
Hülkenberg going to get his podium?
Yes.
Yeah, Chaz?
Maybe. I definitely think Sainz will, because he's one for pulling great performances out of not top cars.
It's one thing to look out for. I think everybody needs to look out for this season is when this deadline that Red Bull have agreed with Daniel Ricciardo for a contract decision goes by. If it turns out he's not signing, we could see Sainz as probably the most likely to take that seat. But if Red Bull don't announce that, he's going to be pushing even harder, isn't he? He's a fantastic driver. I highly rate him. I really do. And I don't want him to fall into, should we call it the Hülkenberg bracket, the Heidfeld bracket, the kind of pretty good driver but never really get there. And I hope he does get that seat at Red Bull. But there's so many variables this year when it comes to Carlos Sainz. I know I've wandered a little bit off topic, but, the Red Bull seat could come up. It's all down to Honda. If Honda are quick but not reliable and it doesn't like they're getting anywhere, do Renault do Red Bull really want to take the Honda engine? Could they use Sainz as a bargaining chip in that? It's so many variables with what could happen with Carlos Sainz, but if he's out there consistently pumping in the lap times, beating his teammate, it's not, for me, it's not just going to be Red Bull that are looking at him. There could be the big two turning their head and going, oh, hang on a minute, yeah, okay, we've got Leclerc, yeah, we've got Ricciardo, but what about Carlos Sainz?
Yeah, I think this year is basically Sainz's year where he has to just prove to everyone in a semi-decent car how good he is. I don't think it's absolutely confirmed that he will be replacing Ricciardo. I still think Sainz has an eye on staying at Renault for, say, another 2 or 3 years.
I see him. This year is a bit of an audition for him, but what I actually see, we're going to come to them now, Toro Rosso, I actually see them two as going against each other for that second Red Bull seat. If Red Bull are genuinely going to build a team around Verstappen, why put a Sainz or keep Ricciardo in there when you can go off and get yourself, not attacking them at all, but go off and get yourself a lesser experienced Gasly and Hartley to play number 2 to him?
Yeah, there's no point getting Sainz in if you're trying to make Max Verstappen, say, Schumacher-esque the number 1 driver. You might as well put a Gasly or Hartley in. I think Gasly will probably take that, but I think Hartley will give it a right go as well.
What do you think on the Sainz, Ricciardo, Red Bull, Renault, Gasly contract situation, John? It's a complicated one when you get going.
Yeah, I think Sainz is going to be smart enough, especially with the motorsport experience of his father, to just keep his ear to the ground about what options are available in his contracts, how things tie up with Renault. Because if Renault do get the standout year that they could do, he would definitely be looking to stay. Any sane person would, which would sort of ignore the whole Red Bull seat, and that would throw other drivers into the mix from elsewhere.
Yeah, and of course, there's no reason why he can't buy himself out of his contract. Jenson Button did it. A number of drivers have done it over the years. There's no reason why, just because he's on loan at Renault, he can't find a way out of that contract, is there? So he could be, Red Bull talking about building the team around Verstappen, possibly other teams trying to do the same. I could see Renault building that team around Sainz.
Yeah, I mean, contracts are contracts. There are always ways out. Even if it costs you an arm and a leg, there are always ways to get out of it. There's always a price to pay. It's just a case of whether it's worth it for him.
If I was Sainz, I'd stay at Renault. Nothing against Red Bull. I think he's got more of a chance of being their number 1 there. Get out of that contract, have a works team, build everything around you. If Renault get it all right, he could be, particularly when you look at 2021 and some of the rule resets, he could end up being quite a force in Formula 1. And the tantalising prospect of Leclerc in a Ferrari, Sainz in a Renault, Verstappen in a Red Bull, Norris in a McLaren, or Russell in a Mercedes, for example. Should we just get to 2021? Forget everything else. Let's move forward. Let's get to that, because that sounds brilliant. Obviously, part of that's going to happen in GP2 anyway, but this year it's going to, or F2. It's going to be a good year. One more team to talk about. Probably, am I fair saying, Chaz, there's surprise package of the winter in Toro Rosso?
Yeah, definitely. I thought that Toro Rosso was just going to struggle in terms of reliability, and I thought pace-wise, even if they got it reliable, it wouldn't be that good. But in terms of pace, it looks really good. A lot better than I thought it would.
Yeah. The lap count, I'm looking at it now. 835 laps, 15 short, effectively, of being double what Honda managed last season in testing. That's unbelievable. I mean, like I said earlier, we've been slagging them off all through the winter, haven't we, about how they're going to struggle, they're going to be back of the grid, and they look like a solid midfield team. They look like they could be, I don't think they're going to be top 4 contenders. I don't think they'll be quite there, but I think that 6th, 7th, 8th battle, I think they're in that. And I'm genuinely so pleased. I wanted Honda to nail it. I really did this winter, and it looks like they've got it right. Obviously, like you say, reliability one thing, but the pace looks like it's there as well. So it's just, for me, John T, and we've talked about it a bit, Hartley and Gasly, are they going to be able to pick up those points like, a Carlos Sainz and a Max Verstappen were, or even a Sainz and a Kvyat to some extent, were picking up points for them. Are they going to be able to do that at races when they, get the opportunity?
I hope so. Gasly certainly has the skills from when I was watching him in F2. He beat some good drivers to get to that title. Hartley, I open my hands straight away and say I don't know enough about him. I've looked at some of his results and his history through various websites, but I haven't actually seen him driving that much apart from the end of last year. So, in my opinion, he's an unknown source. I can't make a comment.
What are your thoughts, Chaz? Do you think they can they just, it's the lack of experience that worries me. I'm not going to lie, you've got, Hartley's got his WEC championships and Gasly's been good even in Super Formula last year. Are they going to be able to pick those points up?
I'm not sure at the minute. I think Gasly maybe in a wet race or something like that, maybe you can pick up some points, but I'm honestly not sure at the minute. It's a wait and see.
Hey, what Toro Rosso could do with and what Red Bull could do with is the most chaotic Australian Grand Prix of all time. Toro Rosso finish 1-2 and nobody else finishes. And then they could just focus on 2019 and that Honda engine, can't they? So never going to happen. Although never say never. We can hope. That would be a brilliant way to start the season. But I'm optimistic for them. I think obviously there's a difference between the pace they're showing in testing, the reliability in testing, and how it's going to react when they're pushing flat out for the majority of Grand Prix. I think the first real test for me of that car will be the heat of Bahrain and see what, that Honda wasn't great with the heat last year. If they've nailed that as well, they're looking really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. I mean, like you've mentioned before, the reliability has surprised everyone. And even with the rumours of, silly rumours, they're putting a new engine in every day. Even if they did do that, if it was the Honda engine from last year, still wouldn't have done 800 laps.
Yeah, they kind of James Key came out and said they'd use 3 engines through choice. I love the way Toro Rosso and Honda have been towards McLaren and Renault this this winter. They've been so clever with what they say, but they, 3 engines completely through choice and not necessity. Even it's like you say, Jonty, even if they had changed an engine every race or every test day, the fact of the matter is McLaren were doing that last year because the thing kept blowing up and they had no choice. Toro Rosso would have been doing it through choice, and that in itself is a huge difference. But cycling the engines is quite a normal thing for a team that have a works deal to sort of do through testing, as far as I knew. Or maybe that's a 90s and early 2000s thing, but just always seemed to happen, cycling engines and seeing what was doing what. And it's good for Honda as well. That's 3 units they've had in that car and they've all worked absolutely fine. So I don't know, what's realistic for them then, John T, in terms of championship finish this year?
I say 7th is possible. There's always going to be people dropping out, things happening in every race, pretty much. So if they've got the reliability nailed to that degree, all they've got to do is get to the end. If there's any extra pace there, that's just a bonus compared to what it has been.
Yeah, what do you think, Chaz? Realistic aims for Toro Rosso this year?
I'd probably say 8th because I think the fight for 4th and 5th is just going to be too much for them with Force India, McLaren, Haas and Renault. I just think that's too much for them. I think 8th is a realistic enough target.
If I was thinking earlier, John, so I'm like when I get thinking, it's really painful, but if Toro Rosso get to a point where they are pretty comfortably clear of Sauber, maybe Williams by, say, mid-season, it looks like they're going to get that 8th place, could all of a sudden development stop on that car and then become a complete and total test team ready for Red Bull in 2019? Strap anything on that Honda engine. If it blows up, it blows up. If it works, then they put that aside ready for next year.
You could certainly see Red Bull doing something like that. Sort of the entity as a whole. They've certainly chopped and changed their drivers around enough. You could certainly see them doing it with development of their secondary team so that they both come out better the year after.
Yeah. I still think that Toro Rosso will be the test car all season. Although it depends. I mean, if they're solid, it's money for the team, isn't it, at the end of the day? But then I'm sure Red Bull can subsidise what they lose. So if I were to say as a running order, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, Renault, McLaren, Force India, Haas, Toro Rosso, Williams, Sauber, is that sort of where we're going? It's so tough, like you say, Charles, to call 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. But is that roughly what we're looking at, maybe?
For the majority of the season, yeah, but I think for Melbourne, I would put Haas ahead of McLaren.
Yeah. John T?
I'd put Williams at the back, and I'd probably put Force India ahead of 5th behind Renault.
There you go. Yeah. I ran a couple of polls on Twitter over the weekend just to gauge some reaction from people. 58% of people said that Mercedes would have the fastest car when we arrived in Australia. I think that looks like a given, to be fair. But the team that should be most concerned based on pre-season testing, I honestly thought everyone would vote for McLaren because of all the reliability issues. 56% voted for Williams. So obviously, even as a fan, and there are fans out there that will defend them to the hilt, I'm sure, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of concern out there, not just from us here, not just from those on Sky Sports, but people on social media as well. So it's going to be a tough season for Williams, but maybe they'll surprise. Maybe they've written off 2018 and they've got the best car in the works that the world has ever seen for 2019, and they'll be amazing. But no. Thank you, by the way, to everyone who voted on that poll. I will put some more up this week because it's just a nice way to interact with people, to be honest. Let's hop then into Q&A because we love doing Q&A. Get your questions in the chat for us. We'll answer as many as we can. Ryan's in chat. Hello, Ryan. Not spoken to him for ages. That's terrible, Sean. Terrible. I should have said, actually, anything you guys want to add on what we've talked about for the season as a whole?
One thing I want to add about Williams is I think they're doomed until they make a major management, I don't know, get rid of a couple people, bring some new people in. I think they're in real trouble, and I think it's probably panic stations at Williams right now.
Yeah. Chauncey?
Yeah, I've got to agree with that. At the management level, you've gone from someone who's completely passionate about the racing to someone who's a business person, but a little bit passionate about the racing. It has to be one or the other. When you get half and half, they make iffy decisions of, I don't know, maybe, instead of making a full decisive choice, and that's causing them problems.
Yeah.
As well, about Williams, I think they're a bit too nice of a team now. They're not as ruthless as they were.
That's a fair point, actually. That is a very fair point. You go back to when Sir Frank was in charge of that team in '97, and they had Patrick Head on board. They were a completely different animal. That's a very good point, actually. Yeah.
I'm just hoping there's a little bit of ruthlessness left, and that there's something in the driver contracts that can go the other way. To just say, you might have paid, but you're really not putting in the performance, so we're going to get someone else.
For Q&A, I'm going to start with the donation questions. Thank you very much for the contribution from Racer949494. They've asked predictions for 4th in the Constructors' Championship. By the way, love the channel. Thank you very much. At the minute, Renault. I can't see past Renault for that one.
Yeah, I'd have to go Renault as well.
Yeah, probably Renault. I hope it's Force India.
I think it is going to be the tightest battle to watch. I think you are looking at Renault, Force India, McLaren if they get their act together. Maybe Haas mixing it up as well, taking points off them. So I'm looking forward to that. If we get, just a heads up, if we do end up with a boring Mercedes run away a second lap quicker than everybody else, just forget that, let them get on with it and watch the midfield, because that is where the scrapping's going to be. And also Harrison Nayland, thank you very much for your donation. Really appreciate that. What about the smoke coming from the Ferrari engine? I don't really know. From what I've read and from what they've been saying on numerous news reports on Sky Sports. It's just a case of them having to run more oil than usual. I don't know. It's a very thirsty car, as I said earlier, but as far as I know, it is just over the top amount of oil. I mean, when you go back in a few years now, John T, it was pretty normal sight, wasn't it, to see cars smoking at the back with oil being burnt off? So
yeah, a bit of overfill. But there's been some talk about them burning oil. It's been mentioned in the chat today as well. Even though that was changed halfway through last year or the year before, I can't remember. Who knows? Maybe they found another sneaky way to get it in there.
yeah, like Renault's clever blown rear wing, very clever. That's going to get copied, by the way. It won't take long for somebody to do that. What do you think about the smoke coming from the Ferrari engine then, Chaz?
I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, I've heard reports that maybe the Ferrari's down on power because they've had to make some compromises, but I don't. We have to see what happens with them in Australia, whether it is a negative rather than a positive.
Yeah, it's all the Ferrari engines as well, is it? It's not just the Ferrari team themselves, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's gone for Australia. It might just be they were running a bit too much oil for testing. But I guess we shall see. Let's get back to chat then and see what we've got. A Black Emergency said, chances of Ricciardo staying at Red Bull. I'll let you take that one, Chaz.
I still think there's a good chance. I say it's about 50-50 still, because if that car this year is good and it still shows promise of being good for the next couple of years up until the 2021 rule changes, I wouldn't be surprised if he just settles and stays at Red Bull.
John T, get used to this one, mate. Jurassic Emu says, still think Alonso on pole in Australia?
Yeah, no.
You could dream, can't you? There's nothing wrong with that.
It was always a hope, but no, just will not happen.
Martin says, is this season Perez's last chance? That's very, yeah. If he gets obliterated by Ocon, then he might be out of a seat. But I think if Ocon obliterates Perez, he'll probably go to Mercedes, and they'll want to keep somebody with experience in that car, won't they? So
yeah, that ties into what happens with Mercedes drivers. If Lewis does retire, then there's a high chance of someone like Ocon going there. And then, like you say, Perez would be pretty safe. But he's definitely got to sort it out.
Yeah. What do you think, Chaz?
I don't think it's his last chance. Even if Ocon beats him, Force India will need his experience and also his money. Let's not deny that, to help out the team.
I just saw one from... Yeah, this is the problem when you do Q&A. The chat goes crazy. I always lose questions on the spot. I think it was Martin, possibly. No, it's not. I'm lying. It's Trevor Fredrickson says, do you guys see Max going to Ferrari? And then a little bit further down, Dante says, will Leclerc go to Ferrari right after Sauber if he makes an impact? If Max leaves Red Bull, I think Ferrari will be where he goes. I don't know why. I just have a feeling, as I've said it before, that Verstappen Senior's already had words with Ferrari and Ferrari have already had words with him. I think there's already a little bit of chat going on there. A little bit like when Lewis moved to Mercedes, when Niki Lauda and Ross Brawn were in his ear a little bit. I think that's possibly already happened there. But I think it comes down to what Red Bull do this season, possibly next year. But Leclerc and Verstappen at Ferrari, John T, that's not beyond the realm of possibility, is it?
Yeah, that could work. Someone's just put it in the chat that I was going to say Max would never end up going to Ferrari while Vettel's still there. I don't think he would allow it.
No. It'd be to replace Vettel, I think. Yeah, Chaz, any thoughts on that one?
I think if he leaves Red Bull, he's definitely going to Ferrari. And I think the reason Ferrari are interested in him is because they see the similarities between him and Michael Schumacher. And I think that's why they want him, so they can kind of reincarnate the Schumacher era.
he's young enough, isn't he? I think there's no denying his talent. He's a fantastic racing driver, but I think a lot of it is his age. Teams are looking at him going, okay, we could iron this out, we could sort that out. He's still got time to develop. So, yeah, I think I can't see him going anywhere but Ferrari if he leaves Red Bull.
Same.
But like you say, not with Vettel there. You're right there. That's never going to happen. Could you imagine? And I'm not even convinced that Hamilton would want him at Mercedes. I know Lewis Hamilton likes to say, "Oh, I want the best drivers alongside me," but I'm not convinced he'd want him there. Maybe I'm wrong. Jonathan Davis asked if his spreadsheet was helpful. It was actually a really good spreadsheet, wasn't it, Jonty? Loads of information on there.
Yeah, it was really handy, and it really showed that one, admittedly, hardly any fuel that has put in, but on the super softs beating what should be faster cars on ultras and hypers.
Yeah, it was really a lot of information on there, and I really do appreciate that. So thank you very much for sending that over, mate. Lewis would wreck Max. Okay. When will Verstappen win his first championship then, says Dante? I'm still putting him down for post 2021.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah, 2021 will be the year it happens.
In a Red Bull?
In a Honda that used to be Toro Rosso.
Is that a genuine prediction or just another why not prediction?
Another shot. Oh, why not?
Yeah. Sorry, that's just thrown me there. Honda, yeah, maybe, possibly. I mean, he was happy when he went to the Sauber factory. What am I about? He was happy when he went to the Honda factory, wasn't he? Really pleased with how that all looks. So maybe. I mean, who knows?
You heard it here first.
There you go. Yeah, remember that. Either way, remember that, and make sure you come back in 2021 and give me some stick for that one when it's doesn't happen, or maybe doesn't happen. What if Jeremy Pope? What if K-Mag impresses? Could he move to Ferrari?
No. If a Haas driver impresses, it'll be Grosjean, and I think he will be the one going to Ferrari to replace Kimi.
Jonty?
Yeah, I don't think he's good enough. And what we've seen from other teams in the last couple of years, if he really doesn't perform this year, could we see a swap? Taking Leclerc to the Haas and dropping K-Mag to the Sauber. You never know.
No, yeah, I mean, they're effectively Ferrari's Toro Rosso now, aren't they, in many ways? So why not? Yeah, that's a good point. James Bryder says, which drivers could be replaced mid-season and who will replace them? The obvious ones, probably the Williams boys, aren't they? But I don't think they'll go anywhere mid-season. I think they're paid up and they'll be there at least to the end of the year and probably to the end of next year as well.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Even if they're paid up, the drivers have still got to perform. And if they really don't, who knows what could happen? But I have got some hopes for Sirotkin.
What do you think, Chaz? It's a tricky one.
I'm kind of 50-50 with this. I could definitely see them completing the season, but I do think one of them might struggle to the point of being dropped mid-season. I'm not sure which driver, but I can definitely see both scenarios.
Would Kubica be too much of a gamble, do you think?
No, I don't think he would. I think testing has proved that as well, that he would do a decent job in a Williams car that is absolutely awful right now.
Until the final day, he was fastest of all of them, wasn't he, at the Williams team? So it was only that lower fuel run that Sirotkin did towards the end of the final day that knocked him from that. But I think Williams needed one of them to go up there and beat Kubica's time. Otherwise, the obvious questions were going to be asked. What do you think, Jonty? Do you think he's still a bit of a gamble and needs to just show what he can do in testing first?
Obviously, there's some element of chance with his fitness, but the times say it all. And I think Williams have been wise to keep him on as the reserve so that there's someone who can just jump straight in. I think that's why he's been doing a lot more than most other test and reserve drivers have during testing.
Yeah. Thank you very much to JBF1 for your contribution. He says, enjoying the content, keep it up. We'll try our best, mate. Loads coming as we head towards the season, and of course in the season itself. So yeah, really looking forward to it. Vicky Fox says Stroll and Sorokin are doomed. I think it's a little bit bleak, you know. We've not seen it. They might turn up at Australia and surprise us all. Who knows? But yeah. Do you think Haas will be top of the midfield by the end of 2018? Asks Godfrey. Jonty.
There's an outside possibility of it. The name I couldn't remember earlier was Jorg Zander. He's the designer they've got on. So the development will keep going through the season. Don't forget, this is the guy who designed the Brawn. So he certainly knows what he's doing. And that's we saw in their first year and partly last year that they kind of dwindled away after starting strong. So that's going to be different.
Yeah. I just saw a question. It's got to go. There you go. Paris Precious 21. Will Bottas fulfill his expectations? I'd like to think so. He's a nice guy, isn't he? That's the problem. He's a blooming nice guy. I don't know. I think for me, I've said it all winter, the jury's out on Bottas because he was kind of drafted in, not last minute, but drafted into that Mercedes quite late on last year. And I think that showed throughout the season. And I think with a full season behind him and a full winter behind him, possibly he's going to be closer to Lewis. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I think if the rumour is to be believed that Mercedes are a second quicker, we flipping well need him to be quick. Otherwise, we're going to have one boring race for the championship.
I do think if the Mercedes car is dominant, that is going to help him so much in securing a seat for 2019.
Yeah. He has only got a 1-year contract, hasn't he?
Yeah.
It's safe to say he needs to perform.
Yeah. I don't know. I like Bottas. I hope he can really. Yeah. Niels, which track has the best fans? All of them. Silverstone for me, but only because I've been there. So, yeah.
Even though I haven't been there, I'd have to say Monza.
Yeah, I'd say Monza as well. No
one tops Tifosi.
No, I don't know. I saw a few drunk guys at Silverstone that would probably top the Tifosi, to be honest. So, yeah. Chances of Raikkonen getting sacked, asks Jivan. I don't think he'll get sacked. I think this is his last season, though.
Yeah, he's not getting sacked. I think he'll announce his retirement on the Thursday of Spa.
Thursday of Spa?
It's a good way to announce it, and then he can have the last, 8 races? Everyone knowing it's his last 8 races, and then it'll just be a party until the end of the season.
If I was to pick a race that he was going to announce it, I would have gone Monza. But they're basically the same time, aren't they? They're not a million miles apart, so...
And it's his favourite track as well.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call, actually. I didn't think of that.
Just after the summer break as well, isn't it? So...
It's the last weekend of August.
From a YouTuber's point of view, I'd like him to announce it before the summer break, so it'll give us a bit more to talk about while we're waiting for him to come back racing. But, yeah, it's not a bad shout. That'll be there on Monza, I would have thought. But there is talk that he's hired somebody to write a book for him already, an autobiography. So that generally means that's it, doesn't it? And I wouldn't mind seeing Kimi Räikkönen write his own autobiography, to be honest, though. Be about 3 pages long, and one of those would be drawings of the word bois. So he doesn't say a lot, does he? So, yeah, I like Kimi. Problem is he's just turned into a bit of a meme, hasn't he? That's the trouble. Can Alonso possibly go to Mercedes? Asks Snehan.
No way.
What was that? Sorry.
Could Alonso go to Mercedes?
No. No, Mercedes are happy with the drivers they've got, and they've got eyes on others. Although I'm sure Alonso would jump at it if the chance came up.
Oh, there's no doubt Alonso will push for it, won't he? I mean, yeah, but I the pre-season he's had, if things don't improve quickly this season, I think this is his last as well. I don't like saying that because I'd like him to stay around for a bit longer, but yeah.
One thing I would like to say is I think him doing the entire World Endurance Championship season, I think he already knew that the McLaren car would not be right up there when he made that decision.
Ooh.
Good point, actually.
Because he would have already done like simulator work, and he would have already got a feel for the car, and then he would have made a decision whether to do this amount of races or just do Le Mans, or it's tactical.
Yeah, if he's not competitive, at least going to World Endurance, he knows he's going to be quick. So yeah, it keeps him happy, doesn't it? That's a really good point. Yeah, sorry, that's got me thinking now. Oh, thanks for that, Chaz. That's my thinking done for the evening. Could he win a race this year? Do we reckon, Alonso?
I don't know. It depends how the car develops. If it has a massive gain, say from the first 4 races, and then when we start to get into the European season, then maybe at a wet race or Hungary or Monaco, maybe. But right now, I don't see McLaren getting anywhere near winning a race.
What do you reckon, Jonty? We were quite confident, weren't we? They'd be able to do it at somewhere like Monaco, but I'm not so sure now.
Yeah, testing's thrown that to the wind, unfortunately. It would have to be a crazy, crazy race that makes Baku look kind of normal for it to happen, I think, now.
Rob asks, when will this be available as a video? That's all down to YouTube. I have to edit out the first 15 minutes of amazing music so that not too many more people have to suffer through it. So it usually takes a couple of hours to process on YouTube. So any time after that, but as soon as it does, I'll tweet it out and whatnot. So yeah, as soon as YouTube pulls its finger out its backside and works out for me. So yeah. Let's looking for another good question. There's been some really good ones again tonight. Red Bull to win development race versus Ferrari.
Yeah, I think that, because Ferrari, I don't know why, they just struggle development wise. They did it last season. They were just about ahead of Mercedes, and then once we got to the summer break and into the last few races, they just dropped off, and they've been doing this year on year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. They were so strong at the start of last year and then just slowly dwindled.
They haven't won a development race probably since like 2006.
The problem is anybody that goes up against Red Bull in terms of development, they're up against Adrian Newey, aren't they?
Yeah, but even with him stepping down, you've got to believe that all of his underlings have learned a lot.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt. No doubt. He'll have his prodigies, won't he? I guess you could call him. He'll have his apprentices and whatnot. So, yeah, if he does step down, he's going to be one of those that's sorely missed, I think. But he is probably one of, if not the greatest designer of all time, I would say. Right up there with the likes of Colin Chapman and co.
Certainly on aero.
Why is Ferrari's fuel consumption so high, and is it a big problem? They had thirsty engines in 2014. They managed to sort that out. The thing is, it doesn't sound like a big issue in some ways, but with teams tending to underfuel cars, it means they either, one, can't underfuel them as much, which means they're carrying more weight, or two, they're going to have to do more fuel saving in races, which means they're going to be slower. We don't want fuel saving in races.
No, we don't. That's one thing I would bring in with rule changes. Every car must have enough fuel to complete the race, flat out.
Yeah, I absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. It's not an eco driving your eco Corsa to the shops, is it? You know, we're racing at the end of the day. I don't know what that point was, but we're racing at the end of the day, and I want to see him going flat out. And yeah, I don't like this whole fuel saving thing. And yeah, we'll take a couple more from the chat 'cause we're overrunning again a little bit. So yeah, let's see. Nick Hill, 17,777 subscribers. That is a nice number. Obviously, I'd like more. Keep it going. But yeah, that's a lot of sevens. I like that. So we turn that 1 into a 7. That'd be lovely.
That's all right. It's only 17,765 more than me.
Oh, yes. Yes. Thank you, John. So you've reminded me. I did write it down somewhere. But go check out Jonty's channel if you want something a lot more insightful than I can offer on the technical side of Formula One. He put a video up yesterday on the Halo, which was really, really good. Really, really good watch. I learned a lot from it. And I thought I dug pretty deep with that. So yeah, well done on that video, mate. It was awesome watch.
Thanks. And of course, don't forget to keep up with Chaz's videos as well, because he puts them out every day. Is it? That's how you get your news.
I try to.
It's that time of year, isn't it, Chaz? it's just a constant grind, but for some reason we love it.
Out of like a 30-day month, I'm uploading probably about 26 of them.
Wow. I'm not quite going that far because I get too wound up with myself, but all my videos just end up a bit too ranty, you might have noticed. But yeah, definitely go check out Jonty and Chaz's channel when you've finished on the stream. Give them a sub as well. Wow, another donation. Thank you very much for that one. I've lost your name. Sorry, bear with me a sec. The chat again. Greg Dunbar, if I said that wrong, sorry. What do you think Red Bull will do with the Halo? Thank you very much for that contribution. It's not actually. It's one of the. I thought the Red Bull Halo was going to be the one that got the most fairings stuck on it, and you know, proper interesting Adrian Newey style. But it's actually one of the ones that's not got a lot on it, really, Jonty.
No, it's just had the little. They have tried out the little winglet that the other teams have done, but that's all we've really seen, apart from Haas, who had a comb on it, effectively lots of little vortex generators, which was quite different. I honestly thought we'd see a lot more from most of the teams on it, because there is some real space for development there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Haas one I think looks awesome. You've got, was it Force India that have got a triple fairing on the top of their Halo, which I think McLaren have now copied. So I'd still expect Red Bull to turn up with some different stuff on that car in Australia. I don't think we've seen everything just yet. But yeah. Jurassic Emu, will the F1 Word create a new F1 team with Kvyat and Wehrlein as drivers? Depends on donations. If I can get a couple of 100 million, I'll give it a go. But no.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hypothetically speaking, though, I'd put Wehrlein in my car, definitely. But I'd probably go and get Jev to sit alongside him.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, I just don't think he's one of those drivers that should still be in Formula One. And there's a couple from the Toro Rosso Academy, if you like, that should still be in Formula One but aren't. So, yeah, Jev and Wehrlein for me out of those that are available, if you like. Obviously, Hamilton and Vettel, if not. Why not?
No, I'll make a Seat team and get Alonso and Fuoco.
Okay. Jazz, if you were making a team, who would you go for driver-wise?
Verstappen as a clear number one, and then I'd kind of have it like Ferrari had in the 2000s. I'd have a clear number one and clear number two. I'd have Verstappen and Perez. because I think Perez as a number 2 is absolutely perfect for it.
That's a fair call, yeah. I still think Perez, if he gets a good season, is in with a shout at that Ferrari seat as well. But I think there are people probably just ahead of him now. But who knows? It's going to be, yeah. Hopefully he'll get on top of Ocon this season and maybe not run away quite so much from him, but or run into him, probably better than that. But yeah, let's see. We've got one more question. If you guys spot one, do feel free to shout it out. Try not to read people's conversations between each other as well. I did that last week. I was actually talking to somebody else. Oh, I do apologise. We always get a couple that come through at the same time that are really good. Right, okay. Nick says, when will Vettel beat Hamilton?
Oh, you could really roll some people up by answering that. Is it when Hamilton retired?
I thought it'd be this year, but after what I've seen, I don't know.
I was pretty confident it'd be this year. All winter been saying is that Vettel will win the drivers and Mercedes will take the constructors, but I'm hoping Ferrari sandbagging, not because I'm a Ferrari fanboy or a Vettel fanboy, but because I want to see 3 teams fighting for the championship. And ideally 6 drivers, but I think probably 3 drivers, but yeah. Yeah. It's all down to Merc, isn't it? This is the problem. It's all down to Mercedes. If they keep the dominant car till the end of 2020, then it could well be that Lewis will need to retire for Vettel to do it. Not because Vettel's that much worse than Hamilton, but because if that Mercedes is dominant, then nobody's going to stop Hamilton other than a teammate. So,
yeah, I think to put it just in flat terms, unless he's got a faster car, I don't think he ever will.
Seriously, why do people even think Vettel is a match for Lewis? It's probably the 4 world titles he's got. Just a thought. One more then. I don't know which one to pick. Yeah, I'm going to go for it. We're ending with Amir's question. If Alonso retires, what will be his legacy?
Massive increase in the share price of deck chair manufacturers.
I had a feeling you were going to come in with something like that, John, so I don't know why.
His legacy, it will be similar to Mansell. Great driver, amazingly quick, could have won a lot more.
Yeah.
That was the route I was going down, to be honest. Something like that. A driver who should have achieved more than he actually has. I mean, yeah, he's lost 3. I just think he's lost the last 3 years of his career.
Yeah, for the talent he's got, he should have at least 4 world titles by now.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Should he have won 4? Just trying to think back. 2012. I mean, 2012, he had a dog of a Ferrari, but managed to drag that round.
If he was in a Red Bull that year, the championship would have been over by Monza, the way he was driving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah, should have had 4, at least. No, 4's about right, I think. 2007, maybe.
2010.
2012. 2010? Oh, yeah. But yeah, exactly. Ferrari sorted his strategy out, and he would be at least a 3-time world champion, wouldn't he? Because it was their mistake, covering off Webber rather than focusing on their own strategy.
And he was leading the championship going into the last race, wasn't he?
His to lose, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Arashi just said, Alonso's legacy, a career full of bad choices. Do you know, probably not long term, but for the first year or so after his career, that's probably how people will see him. What if he'd made this choice? What if he'd done that instead of going there? What if he had gone to Red Bull in 2010?
Or what if he stayed here instead of going here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I have to agree with that.
We'll leave it there then, guys. We have overrun, but we've not had Chaz on for a while, so it was nice to get a different point of view, actually.
Yeah. We just had a mod reminders there.
Yeah,
Cough time.
Yeah, we had a lot to talk about pre-season and whatnot. So, thank you very much, first off, Chaz, for joining us again. Hopefully get you on again very, very soon. It was awesome to get another opinion in there.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and also thanks to everyone watching the stream as well.
Yep, no worries, mate. Hopefully get you on again. Also, don't forget to go check out Chaz's channel, and John T, as ever, thank you very, very much for helping me out for this one, and I'd imagine we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, and thanks for going on, Chaz. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, cheers.
And I shall see you all soon.
Yeah, and don't forget to go check out John T's channel as well. So there you go. I'm sure the mods will put some links in the description in the chat whilst I'm signing off. So thank you very much, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, see you around.
Right then, that is it for this one. I'm going to be back on Tuesday because it is predictions week on the F1 Word, which basically means I'm going to predict what I think is going to happen and upset probably a hell of a lot of people. But that's why I set the channel up, not to upset people, but to give an honest opinion. So that's coming up this week. We'll be live, of course, on Wednesday for our usual midweek stream. We'll be a bit more interactive for that one, so we'll get lots of your questions on the subject of you guys. Going to give you your shout outs for your subscriptions. If, as ever, I cock up your name, I do apologise. Jose Carlos, Shandox, Bailey, thank you for your subscriptions. Racer949494, again, thank you very much for your donation. Ben, Pablo, Pepin, Yakub, thank you for your subs. Harrison, again, thank you for your donation. Pongi, Kevin, Forza Toby, oh my god, or Forza Toby, makes more sense in my head. Thank you for your subs as well. JBF1, thank you for your donation. Christoph, Katie, Fareed, Ken, Lawrence, Baz, Mark, thanks for your subs as well. And once again, thank you to Greg, or Craig, however you want me to say it, for your donation, or not your, for your donation as well. There's something I want to tell you guys, or something I want to tell you, but if I remember, I'll pop it on social media later. So give me a follow on Twitter. Links to Facebook, Twitter, and Discord are all in the description down below. Don't forget to check out my Patreon page as well if you want to support the channel a bit more long term. Video up Tuesday, but in terms of live streams, I will see you again on Wednesday. As ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.